Havana, ooh, nah, nah. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, nah, nah. He took me back to East Atlanta, nah, nah, nah. All of my heart is in Havana. There's something about
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, class.
Good morning.
Good morning, class.
Good morning.
Okay, so how are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Fine, thank you. Okay. Now, before we start the class, I want you to follow me when I say class, and you say yes. Let's start together. Class.
Yes.
Class.
Yes.
Class, class.
Yes, yes.
Class, class.
Yes, yes.
Class, class, class.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, cool. So now we are going to absent first. Well, so Kaliana, Ismi, Uji, Tasfaya, Tasya, Pak, Rahel, Dijani, Lulu, Keisha, Bagas, Ilham. Oke, sekarang kita akan belajar pronunciation. Let's pronounce together. Pronunciation.
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 Ada yang tahu apa itu pronunciation? Bagas tahu gak? Ada yang tahu? Bebas opini kalian aja. Pronunciation.
Pengucapan.
Yes, pengucapan. That's right. Betul. Nah, itu tuh pronunciation itu pengucapannya. Ada yang pernah nonton Skinny Fats?
Enggak.
Enggak ya? Ya udah. Oke, jadi pronunciation itu pengucapan ya. Nah, dalam bahasa Inggris, pronunciation itu harus dilafalkan secara baik dan benar. Jadi ketika kalian nanti misalkan ke Inggris ya, terus ketemu orang Inggris, gak mungkin kan kalian bilang how are you today? Enggak kan? Gak how are you today kan, tapi how are you today? Nah gitu. Nah, jadi sekarang kita akan mempelajari basic pronunciation. Nah, Miss punya video dan ini bisa jadi overview buat background knowledge kalian tentang apa itu pronunciation. Class? Class,
Yes.
Apalagi yang kalian mau? Class?
Yes.
Class, class?
Yes, yes.
So, this is the video.
British English versus American English pronunciation from EspressoEnglish.net. You might be able to recognize a British accent or an American accent, but do you know the details of the pronunciation differences? This lesson will teach you some of the major differences between British and American English, although there are some variations depending on what region of the country the speaker is from. British and American English have some differences in the stress of certain words. Listen to the pronunciation, first the British English, and then the American English. Adult, adult. Ballet, ballet. Brochure, brochure. Garage, garage. Vaccine, vaccine. Advertisement, advertisement. Hospitable, hospitable. Some words ending in ILE are also different. Agile, agile. Fertile, fertile. Hostile, hostile. Mobile, mobile. Versatile, versatile.
Nah, so that's the overview of what is pronunciation. Sekarang ada yang bisa ngasih opininya nggak what is pronunciation after you watch this video? One person? dalam bahasa Inggris itu ada dua aksen yang sudah awam dan emang berbeda pengucapannya. Jadi berbeda aksen, berbeda pengucapan. Jadi kalau misalkan kalian nonton Harry Potter itu aksennya
Once upon a time, there was a lady and she lived by herself. She always wanted a daughter since she was a little girl herself. One bright morning, she was watering the plants and crying, thinking if she had a little girl with whom she could play with. A fairy godmother appeared in front of her.
What happened, my child? Why are you crying? I have set my heart upon having a little girl. Please, could you tell me where I can find one? I'm helpless. Oh, don't worry. That can be easily managed.
Fairy godmother, with her magical powers, brought forward a seed in front of her.
My child, you see, this is not an ordinary seed that grows in farms. This seed needs lots of love and warmth. Put it into a flower pot and see what will happen. And don't forget to give it enough sunlight. Oh, thank you, Godmother. You are so generous.
She planted the seed in the pot. She kept the pot in front of the window for enough sunlight. It quickly grew into a fine, large flower, which looked very much like a tulip. The woman nourished it with love and watered it each day. One day, she softly kissed its half-shut petals. And as though by magic, the flower opened in full blossom. Inside sat a very delicate and graceful little maiden girl.
She's my child, my daughter. I'll call her Thumbelina. She's not bigger than the size of my thumb. I'm your mother, child, and your name is Thumbelina.
The flower had given her the daughter that she had dreamed of. She had a walnut shell that served as her cradle, violet petals for her mattress, and she pulled up a rose petal as her blanket. During the day, she played in a tulip petal boat, floating on a plate of water, and rowed herself from side to side with 2 oars made of white horsehair. It really was a very pretty sight. One night, she lay fast asleep in her walnut shell. A large frog hopped through a hole in the window pane.
How pretty she is. She'd make the perfect bride for my own dear son.
And she took up the walnut shell, in which little Tiny lay asleep, and put Thumbelina on a water lily leaf in the middle of the pond.
We have placed her on a lily leaf. She will never be able to escape us now.
Left all alone on the green leaf, Thumbelina sat down and cried. And she didn't want to have the frog's horrible son for her husband.
No way I am marrying you.
You can't say that to me.
On the other hand, Mother tried to find Thumbelina in every corner of the house, but she couldn't find her. There was a shoal of fishes who swam in the water beneath her. They had seen the frog and heard their conversation. They felt very sorry, so they decided to help her. Meanwhile, the frog and her son were busy making the wedding plans. The fishes gathered around the green stem and nibbled it with their teeth. The leaf separated from the stem, and Thumbelina started floating.
Thank you so much. You guys are really kind.
Thumbelina went away, far, far away, where the frogs could not find her. Thumbelina sailed past many a place, where the little birds saw her and they sang, "What a pretty girl!" As darkness grew, she wrapped herself with the leaf and slept. But the next morning, she woke up at a place where the sun struck the water and it looked like shining gold. She was heading towards the end of the stream. Just then, a big bug flew by.
What a beautiful girl she is! I must save her.
Immediately, he fastened his claws around her and took her away to a far, far place.
Where are you taking me, Mr. Bug?
I'm taking you to my house.
After a while, when they reached the bug's house, all the other bugs who lived in the tree came to see who had come.
Friends, look at this pretty girl. I am going to marry her.
She has only 2 legs. What a miserable sight this is. Look at that. She has 2 hands. How shameful. She looks like a human being. How ugly she is.
Mr. Bug came to agree with them and finally, in anger, left her somewhere deep in the woods. The winters approached. Snow began to fall, and the poor girl shivered with cold. It was terribly cold for her. She walked and walked, finding food and shelter. No sooner did she come across a little cottage. She went to the huge door of the cottage and knocked. Out came a field mouse who lived in the cottage.
Who are you, poor little thing? I'm lost in the woods. I'm feeling very cold and have nothing to eat. Could you help me? I live alone here. You can come into my house and share my dinner. You will feel warm here. But before that, may I know your name? I am Thumbelina.
Thumbelina came inside. The cottage was warm and cozy, with a whole storeroom of grain and a kitchen with a pantry.
Thank you for sharing food and giving me a warm place to stay. You can stay with me all winter. Mrs. Mouse, you are really kind.
The mouse was so fascinated by Thumbelina's beauty that she wanted her to stay with her forever.
It's a weekend, so we shall have a visitor today. Once every week, my neighbor comes to see me.
Soon the bell rang, and there appeared a mole. He paid them a visit in his black velvet coat. The mole heard her voice and fell in love with her sweet voice. He decided to marry her, so he went to the mouse and said,
I shall give you all my food and my house. Only if you get me married to this pretty girl.
Mrs. Mouse couldn't say no to the rich mole.
All right, I shall start the preparations then.
Yes.
Thumbelina didn't want to marry the mole, so the next morning she decided to run away. While wandering in the woods, she came upon an injured sparrow lying in the forest.
The poor bird must certainly have died of the cold.
As she went closer, she saw the sparrow was alive. He was just injured.
Are you okay, dear sparrow? Oh no, it's bleeding.
Thumbelina decided to help the little bird and got some bandages and medicine for the sparrow.
Don't worry, Mrs. Sparrow. You will be all right now.
The little sparrow could fly just as she applied bandages.
Goodbye, you pretty little bird. Thank you, pretty little child. I shall never forget this. What help can I be of to you?
Soon she saw the mouse and the mole approaching and calling out her name.
Oh, Thumbelina, where are you?
As Thumbelina heard their voice, she told the sparrow,
The mouse wants me to get married to Mr. Mole. Please, could you take me away somewhere far from them? I don't want to marry the mole. I have a plan. Come on, climb on my back, quickly. Bye, Mrs. Mouse. Thank you for everything. I love you, and I shall never forget this.
The mole and mouse were startled as they saw Thumbelina flying away. The sparrow took her to a flower land, where there were all types of flowers and little birds who would sing.
This is just so beautiful. What's it called? It's called the Flower Land, and it's time I leave. Thank you, Miss Sparrow. You are the best.
Thumbelina was very happy.
This is my home. These flowers smell so good. The birds sing so softly.
No sooner did she remember her real home, how her mother grew her up with her love. She felt very sad and wanted to go home now. But suddenly, there appeared the king of Flowerland. He saw Thumbelina and fell in love with her.
I am the king of Flowerland.
And you are the prettiest girl I've ever seen. Will you marry me and be my wife? I will make you the queen of Flowerland. Thumbelina thought for a minute. Here indeed was a different sort of husband from the froggy son, Mr. Bug, and the mole with his black velvet coat.
Yes, only if you take me back to my mother, and we three will live happily there.
He agreed and brought Thumbelina a present. The best gift of all was a pair of wings that had belonged to a large silver fly. When these were made fast to her back, she too could fly from flower to flower. After the marriage, the king and Thumbelina flew away and found the mother's home. The mother was really happy to see her back.
Oh, Thumbelina, you don't know how happy I am to get you back. I will never let you go away from me now. I will never leave you, Mother.
Mother welcomed both of them, and they lived happily ever after.
Buat tulis di sini satu kata yang menurut kalian sulit diucapkan. Yuk ke depan. Aku ya. Boleh satu boleh dua. Sini dua ya. You are kalian punya HP kan? Cuma Google ya? Punya HP kan? Nah, di Google itu ada application namanya English Pronunciation. Ini logonya itu yang ini. Kelihatan? Nah, apa itu? Nah, jadi di aplikasi English Pronunciation itu ada dua aksen, ada dua pronunciation. Yang satu British, yang satu American. Tapi untuk standar yang kalian harus kuasai itu adalah British. Jadi kita pilihnya yang British dulu aja. Nah, sekarang cara pakainya itu gampang banget. Kayak sales ya. Cara pakainya itu gampang aja. Gampang banget. Jadi kalian tinggal type aja, like warm. Okay, so that's how you pronounce warm. Try together. One. Gimana lagi ya? Itu British warm. Next is
Owners. Oars.
try together. O's.
Oars.
Together. Oars. Class.
Yes.
Class.
Yes.
Oars.
Oars.
Nah, kalau di British itu R-nya sedikit disappear. Jadi when you say disappear, it's going to be disappear. So O's. Next is
Immediately.
immediately. Try together. Immediately. Dengar lagi ya.
Immediately.
Together. Immediately. Coba bagas. Good. Coba sini. Ilham. Liliana. Puji. Tijana. Siapa? Tijani. Tisha. Ada yang belum? Next.
Who.
Try together. Whom. Enggak whom ya. Enggak whom.
Who.
Next.
Cottage.
Try together. Cottage.
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 Appeared.
Dari melakukan? Appeared. Okay, try. Appeared. Okay, try together. Appeared. Class.
Yes.
Class.
Yes.
Appeared.
Appeared.
Next.
Nourish.
Nourish. Okay, ada yang mau ke depan? Pronounce one by one. Ada yang mau ke depan? Atau langsung latihan aja? Latihan pronounce. Langsung aja ya. Ini satu bangku, satu atas ya.
Sunlight.
Sunlight.
Try together, sunlight.
Sunlight.
Jadi bukan sunlight berarti ya. Jadi kalau misalkan ada GHT itu dibacanya 8. Jadi kayak 7, bukan 8, tapi 8. Okay, let's try together, sunlight.
Sunlight.
Cool. The sunlight was very bright.
The sunlight was very bright.
Nah, ada lagi kan GHT itu tuh bukan bright lagi tapi bright ya. The sunlight was very bright.
The sunlight was very bright.
Ada yang mau baca? Nomor 1.
The sunlight was very bright.
Good. Give a applause for Heliana. Nah, sekarang perhatikan kata yang digarisbawahi nomor 2. Ada yang bisa pronounce-nya? Kita dengerin dulu ya.
Fascinated.
Fascinated.
Dengerin setelah aplikasi ya. Ucapin setelah aplikasi.
Fascinated.
Fascinated. Together.
Fascinated.
Fascinated.
Good. Ada yang mau baca kalimat nomor 2?
I was fascinated by her beauty.
Okay, raise your hand. Raise your hand.
I was fascinated by her beauty.
Together tadi ya. Fascinated.
Fascinated.
Oke. Nah, sekarang lihat nomor 3. Kata yang di garis bawahnya. Ada yang tahu cara pronounce-nya kayak gimana?
Yes, sir.
Gathered. Oke.
Gathered.
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 Try together.
Gathered.
Gathered.
Oke. Ada yang mau membacain nomor 3? Raise your hand ya. Kalian dulu.
The family gathered in front of the pond in the backyard.
Cool, you're close. Number 4. Ada yang tahu gimana cara pronounce generous? Kita dengerin ya.
Generous.
Oh, generous. Try together. Generous.
Generous.
Yeah.
Generous.
Yeah. Generous.
Generous.
Yuk, nomor 4. Okay, it's me.
Generous, just ordinary yet generous.
Okay, cool. Next, number 5. Try together, darkness.
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 Jadi bukan dark lagi ya. Dark maksudnya ini. Break. Darkness.
Darkness.
Sekarang kita coba dengerin horrible.
Horrible.
Try together, horrible.
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 Cool. Yuk, nomor 5. Okay, Ilham. The darkness was horrible. Good. Give a applause for Ilham. Nomor 6. Injured. Udah bagus. Saya siapa yang mau maju? Oke, nomor 6. Udah betul. Tinggal yang maju.
Hujan.
Hujan. Bagas. Oke. Cool. Now, number 7. Udah tahu ya? Yuk, langsung. Nomor 7. Ya.
The bear lived in the cottage.
Leave here. Dengerin ya.
Lived.
Live. Okay, try together. The bear lived in a cottage.
The bear lived in the cottage.
Okay. Now, for the last, I want satu orang yang mau ke depan bacain dari nomor 1 dari sampai nomor 7. 1, 2. Mau baca segera tapi 7. 7. Yakin 7?
Yakin.
Yakin? Mau tunjuk aja atau baca sendiri? Gak apa-apa, jangan takut salah. Tunjuk. Tunjuk. Oke, Keisha. Depan. Ke belakang. Depan.
The sunlight was very bright. I was fascinated by her
kegiatan kita hari ini? Satu orang aja. What do you think about this learning activity? Sebelumnya kalian udah belajar pronunciation belum? Belum ya? Belum. Jadi kalau misalkan di kelas belajar pelafalannya kayak gimana? Di apa sih? Ngikutin gurunya gitu. Okay, well, I think that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, but before that, I want to give the word to Kisha. Give applause. Kenapa Kisha? Karena Kisha yang mau ke depan. Ini rewardnya buat Kisha. Kasih ya. Nah, teman-teman yang lain juga bakal dapat satu-satu.
Havana, you didn't walk up with that how you do.